Dear friends, welcome back to the video lecture number 9 of model number 4 water chemistry. Let us discuss in today's video lecture water treatment. It is also known as sewage treatment. Let us discuss about what is meant by sewage first before to discuss about the sewage treatment. Sewage is also called as wastewater. If you know the meaning of wastewater, that is what? The water which comes from toilet flushing, bathing, washing the clothes and other general cleaning etc. which is unfit for drinking and other uses is simply called as wastewater. So because of containing variety of impurities in the wastewater, that water cannot be used for any other applications. Before to use such a water for other applications, it is required the treatment. That treatment, what you can say, the sewage treatment. Then what do you mean by sewage treatment? Sewage treatment is the process of removing the contaminants or the impurities from wastewater, primarily from household, industries, etc. So this sewage water, it includes the impurities of different types. Hence it requires the processes like physical, chemical and biological treatments for to remove the different types of impurities present in the wastewater to convert that the sewage water into the safe water. So these impurities may be in the form of some dissolved ions, or maybe in the form of suspended solids, or may contain some harmful bacteria or the viruses. They must be removed before that water is released into the various water streams. Hence, the sewage treatment follows three important stages. What are the three important stages? The first one is the physical and chemical treatment process. Second one is secondary treatment, is also known as biological treatment. And third one is tertiary treatment. In a tertiary treatment, the main important step is what that is called the disinfection. So let us discuss about how the sewage is generated or originated. That means the sewage origin. As I defined the definition of sewage, you know that sewage is nothing but the wastewater which is produced from the household or maybe the industries or maybe any institutional or maybe commercial activities or maybe using the water in the industrial applications. So this water, it includes the waste from the toilets, the waste from the baths, maybe shower water, the kitchen wastewater, sink draining etc. are what? The main sources for the sewage. My dear friends, sewage is also includes the waste produced from the industries as well as some commercial buildings also. Hence, the separation and draining of household waste from the wastewater, the wastewater produced from the household is called as grey water. So here, that water before to go releasing, it is required the treatment. Suppose if the wastewater is produced from industries, that is called as the black water. So here the water may be grey water produced from the household waste containing. Black water means from the industry, it may contain variety of chemicals etc. So these waters are need to be treated after the treatment, that water can be used for toilet flushing, or we can use that water for the gardening purpose for watering the plants. Now let us discuss about the sewage treatment process. The domestic sewage treatment process, it follows the three important steps. The first one is primary treatment. The primary treatment is also called as physical and chemical treatment. So means as per the impurities are present in the wastewater, maybe in the form of physical or maybe in the form of dissolved chemicals, or may it contains organic impurities or microbial impurities, etc. They need to be removed. Hence, let us beginning with primary treatment. Under this primary treatment, the first step is what can say preliminary treatment or pre-treatment, that is simply called as screening. Then what do you mean by screening here? Screening is the first stage of treatment of the sewage water or wastewater. It involves the removal of the large objects like plastics bottles, sanitary storage bottles, or the components or the papers, damaged equipments, suspended and floating substances, etc. They can be removed by the process of screening. So by using the metal bar or mesh screen, passing the water through the metal bar or mesh screen, the large floating particles or materials like plastics, papers, sanitary items, any component can be removed by the preliminary treatment or pre-treatment. Then here I have shown in this, you have the bar screen or you can take the mesh screen, that is allowed to, that wastewater is allowed through the bar screen or mesh screen. You can remove the large objects which are non-biodegradable, so that are removed by passing into the grit chamber, that's what the mesh or the screen chambers. Thereby what you can do, you can remove the large objects which are coming from the wastewater. Then following next one is second one is removal of screen and grit removal. If in the screen or grit removal, if the suspended impurities are what denser, they are heavy one, which is allowed to flow through the chamber. As a result, some particles like grit particles like heavy pieces, pebbles, the sand, so these have the capability to settle down of the bottom of the chamber. Hence the water is allowed to flow very slowly through the grit chamber after passing from screen chamber. So thereby you can remove some heavy components, suspended components from the wastewater. That's what I can say, the grit chamber or screen chamber. Here this is what I have shown in this figure. It is called the grit removal. So in this pre-treatment of grit removal, you can remove the sand where any heavy components like grit, stones, broken glasses, etc. they can be removed by allowing the water with small velocity or with low velocity, and by adjusting passing through the mesh screen or bar screen. That's what I explained here. So thereby what you can do, you can remove the large amount of components which are what settleable. Then third step of primary treatment is what? Oil and grease removal. As you know that the wastewater may contains the oil. Take the example of the water from the household or kitchen wastewater because of using the oils for the preparation of food and cleaning the utensils. So that water, it may contains the oil content. And as you know that in the automobile industries or in mechanical industries, we are using the grease for the smooth functioning of the machines. So such a water is what allowed to at high pressure from the bottom of the tank. The air is blown from the air blower. So as a result, when the solubility of air decreases, the air comes out from the bottom of the tank in the form of bubbles. During this process, there is a chance of removing the oil or the grease content, bringing these components through the bubbles to the topmost surface. And such impurities can be removed by skimming by using the particular ladders. Now come to the fourth step under the primary treatment is called sedimentation. What is meant by sedimentation? Here, this is a process where what can do, you can allow the suspended impurities in the form of settlable form, that is called sedimentation. So it is a process where you can remove the suspended impurities. The particles which are not able to settle down, they can be precipitated or coagulated by using some chemicals are called as the coagulants. So some of the common used coagulants are what? Aluminum sulfate, chlorinated copper, ferrous sulfate, lime, magnesium carbonate, sodium aluminate, potash alum, etc. Amongst these all chemicals, most widely used chemical what can say that is what? The potash alum, which is a coagulant which will allow the suspended impurities in the form of plaques or the settleable form. Here you can observe that the water containing the oil. So after adding the coagulant into the water, those suspended impurities are coming out in the form of precipitate, and that precipitate is trapped by the impurities, and afterwards that is what settles at the bottom of the tank by the precipitation. For example, if your water contains the hydroxyl or any other impurities in the form of dissolved state, if you add the potash alum, makes the adsorption of those impurities on the bare surface of the potash alum, thereby water becomes the clear. Now, fifth step in primary treatment is called what? The filtration. You can observe here in this filtration tank, you are having the three important layers. What are the three important layers? The topmost layer, what I am explaining here or pointed here, the topmost layer is made up of thick and very fine sand bed is taken, and the middle layer what it contains, the gravels bed. Here at the bottom of the tank, it has the coarse bed, gravel bed, as well as the fine gravel bed. So these beds, coarse gravel bed and fine sand bed, are going to give the support for the sand beds in this filter tank. And water is allowed to flow from the top of the tank, and the water is released from the bottom of the tank. So hence whatever the wastewater is able to get it from the filtration process, That is what made treatment for the next step for the removal of other type of impurities. So here what you can observe in this slide, there is the fine skin mesh you have. Here are the grit chamber. Here the water is allowed to very slowly and it is allowed to get settled down at the bottom of the tank, then pass to the primary clarifier. Then next that water is passed into the activity sludge tank or biological tank, where that water is allowed to come continuous aeration. So those organic components gets precipitated in the form of the settleable state. So then that water is, after the activity sludge treatment, is fed into the secondary clarifier. Then denitrification, finally treated that water with the ultraviolet radiation is called disinfection, or treating the water with chlorine powder or chlorinating agent. Now second stage of sewage water treatment is what is called secondary treatment, is also known as the biological treatment. So here in this biological treatment process, I explained the aeration tank. What you can observe, this aeration tank, it includes the entry for the water after the primary treatment. That water is allowed to store into the aeration tank. Then, so this water was sprayed by the activated sludge containing microorganisms. Then water was continuously supplied air by the use of air compressors. As a result, any dissolved impurities organic state are present, they are what? Precipitated or suspended. Then that water is passed into the secondary clarifier. So this is what the process is, the continuous. Now let us discuss about in a brief way about the secondary treatment. It is a process in which we are using the microorganisms. So microorganisms are playing an important role in the secondary treatment. So because of using the microorganisms for the removal of the organic impurities present in the wastewater, that is also called as biological treatment, because the microorganisms are means of the biological components. So these some of the components are used to remove the organic impurities present in the wastewater. As you know that the microorganisms may be like bacteria, fungi, etc. So these microorganisms are going to decompose the organic waste present in the wastewater, and that is converted into simpler form, and hence the here activated sludge, it is sprayed over the tank and air is passed vigorously from the bottom of the tank. So because of very good contact between the air and organic waste present in the water, as a result of oxidation, the effluent or the wastewater and sludge are sent to the respective storage tanks, where the sludge gets settled down and part of sludge is reused for the next step of filtration, and then the fresh batch of sewage water is what followed the secondary treatment process. And here the sewage and test are used for to remove the fertilizers or organic components present in the wastewater. Come to the third point is tertiary treatment, or it is also called as one of the treatment what are following is called the disinfection. So here I am going to explain about tertiary treatment by four important examples. The first one is removal of phosphate from the wastewater. If your water contains the phosphate ions, then that water is treated with the lime that contains calcium hydroxide. So here calcium hydroxide reacts with the phosphate ions, leading to form calcium phosphate by the loss of hydroxyl ions. So this is how you can remove the phosphate ions by treating the water with the what? Calcium hydroxide or the lime to maintain the pH 10, and you are able to remove the some of the phosphate components from the wastewater. Then second one, removal of heavy metals. As the name itself indicates heavy metals, so that water or wastewater is precipitated by adding the sulfide component. As a result, heavy metals are going to be settled down at the bottom of the tank, and that water is allowed for the next process. Here one more important step what I want to discuss in the tertiary treatment is what is called degasification. Degasification means what? The removal of dissolved gases from the wastewater. That is called degasification. So dissolved gases can be removed by passing through the degasifier. In this process, the impurities like hydrogen sulfide, ammonia and carbon dioxide can be removed, and active charcoal can be used for the absorption of next step of dissolved organic components. This is about the primary treatment, secondary treatment, or is also called as biological treatment. Then third one what I want to discuss now, that is called the tertiary treatment or disinfection treatment process. Here the first one let us discuss with the disinfection means what? It is a process of destruction of harmful pathogenic microorganisms, thereby decreasing the causing of germs. Hence, this is what the most important step in the wastewater treatment process. So some important disinfectants are used usually in the water treatment process are what? The first one is chlorination, second one is ozone, third one is UV treatment kit, or you can use the hydrogen peroxide also. Then what do you mean by chlorination? As chlorination means addition of chlorine. Here by adding the chlorine or chlorine compounds into the beach and allowing the bleaching powder as one of the chlorinating agent or the gas of chlorine gas. So when the water is allowed by the chlorine gas, that chlorine makes the organic insoluble dissolved form of the impurities in the form of settleable form. The settleable form of the water can be considered as the tertiary treatment process. Now in this tertiary treatment process, what are the chlorinating agents you can use? Either you can use chlorine gas or chlorine water, or you can use ozone for ultraviolet treatment process. Then fourth one you need to use hydrogen peroxide. So chlorination, here what happens, you are taking the compounds of chlorine like bleaching powder, chlorine gas, chloramines, sodium hypochlorite, etc. Now let us discuss about the reaction what is taking place in the tertiary treatment. As you know that if your water contains higher concentration of chlorine, that is made to react with the water, there is a formation of hypochlorous acid, water and H plus and chloride ions. So this produces nascent oxygen, or you can say active oxygen, which is powerful oxidizing agent for the removal of microbial or a bacterial community. So how it is, hypochlorous acid HOCl undergoing dissociation leading to form the hydrochloric acid with the liberation of nascent oxygen. Nascent means the active oxygen. So this nascent oxygen oxidizes undesirable organic and inorganic compounds present in the wastewater by removing from them. Thereby we can prevent the water from the taste as well as the odor as well as potential of toxicity or infection by the bacterial community. So this is about the sewage treatment, or you can say water treatment. Thank you.